Maurice has been really kicking some butt on these centers for military and veteran reintegration. So I'm really excited to hear his presentation today. So with that, we're going to go ahead and get underway, start with some introductions. We'll keep it real short and sweet. That way we just know who's in the recording with us today. So I'll start it off. Mike Monroe, representing Impact Southwest Riverside County and the Southwest Riverside County Military Affairs Committee. Hilder.
Sorry, guys. Hilder Sam. Same as Mike. Nice to see you all.
Hilder. Mr. Tony with APU.
Tony Ball at Azusa Pacific University, Military and Veteran Outreach.
Thank you, Tony. Mr. Scott Agajanian.
Hey everybody, Scott Agajanian, City of Murrieta Economic Development. So nice to see so many goatees and beards and mustaches today. All of these guys are really representing in a very hairy way. So that's excellent to see. Thank you for having me here.
Thank you, Scott. Always finding some way to make a smile. Sergio, you're up next.
Good afternoon, everybody. Sergio De La Garza, the Veteran Program Manager with the Employment Development Department for Riverside County.
Excellent. Thank you, Sergio. Next up is Merlene Steinbeck.
Hi, yeah, so sorry, I was trying to unmute. I'm Marlene Steinbeck. I'm with California Department of Veterans Affairs.
Thank you, Merlene. Next up is Chief Siebert.
Aaron Siebert, retired Navy chief, lucky to be alive after being hit with a mortar round in April 2006. I am vice president to the Warrior Built Foundation, and I work directly with the PTSD Foundation of America, peer-to-peer mentorship and helping combat vets out with all kinds of stuff. And I run a podcast called Combat Vet Vision. Thanks.
Thanks for having me on Combat Vet Vision on Monday too. Appreciate you. Next up is Nikki Taylor.
Hi everyone, Nikki Taylor. I am filling in for the amazing Amanda Fisher from Senator Melendez's Veterans Advisory Committee.
Which meets next Tuesday. Big Veteran Expo coming up. Thank you so. Next up, Maurice Myers.
Good afternoon, everyone. Maurice Myers, Mount San Jacinto College and Murrieta Wildomar Chamber of Commerce board member.
Thank you, sir. Next up, Nonprofit of the Year, Raven Hilden.
Hi there, Raven, CEO of MilVet, Military and Veteran Support Services. Glad to be here.
Congrats again, very well deserved. Next up is the man I won't shut up about, Mr. Joe Matthews.
Hello, everyone. My name is Joe Matthews. I am with Riverside County Workforce Development and also a United States Navy veteran, and I'm just happy to be here today.
Thank you, Joe. Next up, Noel.
Good morning, everybody. Noel Cahudo. I own Carrying Transitions to Menifee, a senior relocation and state liquidation. Go Navy.
Love it. Lots of Navy represented here today. Next up is Johnny Ellman, newcomer.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Johnny Ellman. I'm with Inland SoCal United Way, and I'm an Army veteran.
Thank you, Johnny. Thank you. Next up is Brad Gardner.
Brad Garner works Officer Warriors here in San Diego, Air Force retired.
Thank you, Brad. And finally, Jamie Huffman.
Hi, good afternoon. Jamie Huffman. I am the Human Resources Specialist for Elsinore Valley Municipal Water District.
Thank you, Jamie. And if he is available, Fearless Leader, Mr. Patrick Ellis.
Good afternoon, everyone. Patrick Ellis, President CEO of the Murrieta Wildomar Chamber of Commerce.
Thank you so much. All right. So we got a last minute email from both March Air Reserve Base and Camp Pendleton. I guess there were some very immediate meetings that needed to have, but they said they would be back with us next month. So I'm going to go ahead and skip the base updates. I know Sam is really good at sharing those updates like the noise reports and things of that nature. And we're good about putting that information out on the Southwest Riverside County Military Affairs Committee page. So if you have not followed that already, make sure you check that out. but expect an update from them next month in October, which will be fantastic. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and just jump right into our presentation, which frankly, I'm very excited about. There are some folks here in the room that I very much want to hear this presentation. So it is my immense honor to introduce just an amazing inspiration and frankly, someone I consider a mentor. MCPO, U.S. Navy, retired First Vice President, Maurice Wilson of the San Diego Veterans Coalition, today talking about the Center for Military and Veteran Reintegration. Maurice, how are you?
Outstanding, thank you, and it's a pleasure to be on the call with everyone to share some information. So what I want to do today is just simply share with you what's going on in other parts of the country and some of the projects that we've been on. And let me start by saying that we've been on this project for about 5 to 6 years now, actually going on more like 11 years. It actually started back in 2010, working through a research group called the Alterum Institute, where they were looking at the scenario of returning veterans back to their points of origin. And back then, in the Alterum report, they really talked about the need for community involvement, communities to rally behind a concept of reintegration. And so we continue to build and build and build on that idea as things evolve over time. And so I'll give you a little bit of a historical track of what's going on. I'll also give you sort of the pictorial view of the journey of veterans, and then I'll share with you where we are right now, which is implementing centers for military and veteran reintegration in a couple of locations. One of those, actually 2 of them in Missouri, one in Kansas City, another in Sedalia, as well as the project that we're engaged in Downey, California, which is really, really exciting there, over to Quantico, Virginia, where we're getting ready to key that up. And so reintegration centers are sort of like the thing now as you look at a lot of the research that's out there. So let me just kind of walk you through sort of the process here. We always try to follow the data, what are the challenges and why do we even need to do something like this? Well, there's some stubborn data that just really won't go away, regardless of all the things that are out there, even though we have over 45,000 veterans organizations across the country. There still seems to be these just annoying problems that we have as of yet to solve. And these are the big 5 that we're always looking at. Yes, there are homeless issues. Yes, there's PTSD. Yes, there are a lot of sub issues there. What we try to do is look at root causes that we can address as communities, and with the understanding that if we can solve those, then it will have a cascading effect downstream. That's sort of like the goal. And so to kind of like paint that picture, we always start with the veteran's journey of, okay, well, how did it begin in the beginning? How did we make veterans? What did the factory look like? And so again, up front, the best way to look at it is that whatever you do on the front end in the factory to create a veteran or a service member, you have to have an equal or equivalent factory on the back end to reinvent that individual in the new sense of where they are. So I'm gonna just let that kind of noodle in for a second. We have tons of resources, but we haven't, as of yet, on a massive scale, created reverse boot camps that says, okay, it is a process, and the process has many steps to it. And so over the years, we just looked at all these different ecosystems and how they work and how individuals ebb and flow from the civilian ecosystem, which shapes them culturally, to the military ecosystem that, again, further shapes and defines them to that point when they re-enter the civilian ecosystem. And as you look at that transition from the civilian ecosystem one into the military ecosystem, it's not a simple put on the uniform. No, there's a process that everybody goes through to convert them into a soldier, sailor, airman, and Marine. very defined, very focused on the tune of roughly 250,000 plus individuals per year. We all go through that factory to be created or developed, if you will. And then we're entered into the ecosystem because we have been prepared. Then comes the time to take off the uniform and there you go. So right now, up until this point, there has not been a reverse boot camp or centers for reintegration, which by and large is sort of one of the contributing factors to a lot of our big challenges. And so that's sort of the framework that we're working in, which is whatever you do on one, it's like a mathematical equation. Whatever you do on one side of it, you have to do on the other side. And so that's sort of the backdrop. And when you begin to look at the whole transition process, it's sort of like a journey of steps that essentially starts anywhere from 2 maybe to 3 years prior to that person's transition. They have to go through certain phases of things to get them ready step by step by step. Again, with the understanding that it's not as simple as just taking off the uniform and bam, you're automatically a civilian. No, you have to go through a process. You know, love it, hate it, even though the military's process is not as good as it could be, they are looking to come up with some kind of a process. And so in this whole equation, Uncle Sam or the military has kind of sort of done their job. There's still another step to be taken, which our communities need to stand up their own reintegration center. So again, that's the premise that we go by, which is we don't put the responsibility on the US government. No, we put the responsibility on the community where the individual is returning. That's sort of the operational philosophy here. And so if you start looking at it and how do we funnel people through into the process, well, it's sort of like a step 1, step 2. Once that individual decides it's time to go home and take off the uniform, it begins to set in motion a series of things, thoughts, behaviors, confusions, the whole 9 yards. And I'm pretty sure that all of you, especially those of you who have gone through that process, can attest to some of that. But even today, as we advise and consult individuals, some of their challenges, some of their concerns, how they're feeling is the same as it was when I got out. Hey, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm not ready to make I think I'm ready to make the pivot, but I just don't really have a clear picture in my mind what it is I want to do, what's going to be next in my life. And again, what we found is that as people make that transition, they're really ready to go through a process. And so one of the processes that we've ran for the last 11 years is what we call the reboot process, which is sort of getting them ready to create their new identity, to find their new purpose, and then to rebrand themselves. But we also learned that it goes even deeper into, okay, now what happens when they return home to their community? Is there a check-in place where they start here? And as they start here, they go through, again, another reintegration process to adjust and adapt to the community, to get retrained, to fit in to that particular ecosystem. So it is indeed a journey, and it's sort of like work that we still have yet to do overall, but we're kind of slowly but surely getting there. So we started working with several regions and areas. We first started with a center here in San Diego. It worked pretty well. We call it the ecosystem, or the Center for Military and Veteran Reintegration, which is just like going in the military, joining the community is a process. And so we started in San Diego, and it worked pretty well. Then we started to expand into Los Angeles with a partnership with the Iowa Museum. And that went pretty well, until COVID-19 kicked in and started to change everybody's world. But the idea was, again, straightforward, a central place that individuals can go and start their reintegration process. Not just come home and take off the uniform, but in fact, have a clearly defined process where you have multiple community partners all integrate, all participating in a sort of a handoff, a holistic handoff, A, B, C, D, E, F, and G, as far as the steps that the individual will take as they reintegrate back in. We then started expanding to Kansas City, which again started to work really well prior to COVID-19. It expanded down to Sedalia, Missouri, which again, they got the concept real quickly, rallied the community. In fact, the image that you're looking at there is the VFW Post, which is sort of like a hodgepodge of buildings that have been collected over the years, where one side of the building was an office, the other side of the building was sort of a restaurant, and they started knocking down walls and coming up with a concept. Well, unfortunately, over the years, the VFW became sort of like a watering hole and was essentially on its last leg until early last year. We all kicked in and began the Center of Military and Veteran Reintegration concept. And so now that facility is being repurposed to become, in fact, a center for integration. And we're actually now working with the state of Missouri's Economic Development Agency to even go further into getting funding from the state to make that a center that supports the economy, as well as part of the base realignment. Because what's happening with some of the bases, they're running out of space, and they're looking at how can they shift some of their services from on base into communities. And so this is what's currently taking place there in Sedalia. And I suspect that's ultimately going to happen across the country. In fact, one of the challenges that we're having here working with our transition colleagues, let's say, for example, the 32nd Street, the Navy, is that they've just run out of space. And so they're looking for off-base partnerships and collaborations and things that places they can go to continue to facilitate the process. So some incredible opportunities. We partnered with, and this has been a long project, with the city of Downey, California. And this started about 4 years ago, where we first looked at a possibility of taking over an American Legion facility there in Downey. However, the facility was in such bad repair that the city mayor at that time negotiated with them, acquired the property, and has since and moved. The American Legion moved somewhere else, but have since then leveled the grounds there. And now we're in the process of getting ready to construct a 150-bed homeless veteran facility / workforce development network. What's going to be unique about this particular center here is that as it relates to homeless veterans, there will not be a scenario where the individuals can stay in the facility for an extended period of time. They'll have a sort of like a limited time, which will be anywhere from 6 to maybe 8 months, to go through the factory for repurposing, reskilling, retraining, to get them back out and get them on their feet. So the goal is to restore them back into the economy to become functional individuals. And then finally, one of the projects that we've been working on for a couple of years is the city, over in Guam, the island of Guam. And what you're looking at there is what they call the Ladera property that's being converted into a center for reintegration. So a lot of folks are getting that. So let me just give you some of the history, or the sort of how these things came to be. It started back in, like I said, in 2010 with Altarum, as we began to study and look at what they call the veteran community teams, which is focusing on community-based coalitions. And so just like you guys, the community is the secret, it's the key. And if there's a way to leverage all of the community resources and assets, we can in fact build what we call these community-based transition centers all across the nation. And I'll get into that a little bit more when we talk about House Resolution 2326. Also kind of contributing to the idea or the concept of collective is better, working together is more powerful, is a force multiplier, was the Stanford University idea on the collective impact model that, again, rallied organizations and to focus on common themes, such as a common agenda, shared measurement, mutually reinforcing activities, communication, a continuous communication, and backbone support. The only thing that didn't come through from the Stanford University report was the integration piece. Altarum really addressed the integration. So it went beyond collaboration and coordination. It went into integrating services for a greater impact. And then there was obviously the report from the Office of the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs back in 2015, that after studying and looking at the nation as a whole and reinventing and redesigning the TAP class, and as you guys all know, TAP has a long history. It's been revised several times. It went from TAP to TGPS, which stood for Transition Goals, Plan, Succeed, and then back to TAP again. It went from a 5-day information on a fire hose scenario to a more refined process. And now it's sort of back to 3 days with 2 days as an elective in different areas for entrepreneurship and education. And so what's happening, what has happened with the military transition program is that they've pretty much evolved as much as they can. And so at this particular point, it's sort of like now back, it's handed over to the community that says, okay, we've done all we can, now it's over to you to create these centers for military and veterans reintegration. And back in around 2018, maybe a little bit sooner, somewhere around about 2016, 17, the Congress began doing the studies on these off-base community-led transition centers. And in 2018 and 19, they introduced House Resolution 2326, which passed Congress in August of 2019. Actually, it passed the House and went to the Senate and just kind of stalled there, and it's still stalled there in the Senate. But the context and the concept behind it falls in line with the direction that everybody seems to be pointing in, which is the need for community-led transition centers that focuses on, purposely reintegrating individuals back into their community, as opposed to the individuals just comes back and they're on their own. And by the way, some of the research that we've discovered, we noted that about 70% of our returning veterans are not in anybody's system. In other words, they're just doing their own thing, trying to tough it out, trying to figure it out. And some are successful and many are not. And so again, there's just another plug for a community-led process where individuals can come home, they can have a designated place where they start. And as they start there, they go through a process of reintegration that helps them resettle and get back on their feet. Pretty much like what happened in 2010 and 2011. Those of you that have been around for a while may be familiar with Governor Schwarzenegger's initiative on Operation Welcome Home. And an Operation Welcome Home was a endeavor put together by the state of California, CalVets, if you will, where again, it was a whole idea that as you come home, there's a check-in, and then you go through a process. Everybody accounts for you. You're on the roster. We're working with you. We're helping you with your needs. We're not taking it for granted that you got this, that you're on your own. It truly was a endeavor to really organize and orchestrate the whole reintegration process. Unfortunately, when Governor Schwarzenegger left, the program left with him as well. But again, it was a great concept, a great idea. So what we've been doing over the years is holding on to some of those best practices out there that seem to make a lot of sense, that says, okay, if we can city by city rally and organize the resources and then really create this reintegration model, then we could actually surround, number one, provide the returning veterans with a starting point, and then directly connect them to a lot of the resources. And so the mission for the CMVR, or the approach for the CMVR, is to serve as a hub for veteran reintegration for individuals as they return back to their respective community. It conducts assessments of the individual and training, ensures that the person has all their questions and their needs met, ensures that they're really embraced into the ecosystem so no veteran gets left out. It provides sort of a monitoring system as we go through the process. Yeah, we got, you hear some people say, I got this, but really, no, they don't. And so it provides a way to provide some monitoring and support, peer-to-peer activity. In fact, I'm pretty sure you guys are aware of the new VA program. They call it the ETS program, the end of term of service, that they've launched in a couple of cities back east, if you will, that creates what they call it's called the ETS sponsorship program, where individuals are sponsored from military bases into a community. So it's very similar to what we're talking about, not exactly the same, because it's kind of setting it up as individual sponsors. What we're really talking about is a specific center that is brick and mortar staffed, where individuals walk in and it's part of the factory. It really is that reintegration factory, just like when we go down to the MIP station and you go from point A to point B. Again, it's a reintegration process there. And again, the concepts that we've been working on is bringing together best practices, as opposed to what seems to happen over the years are a reinvention of the same thing. Sometimes I ask myself, how many times can the resume be reinvented? It's like resume is a resume. How many times can we reinvent the interview, which seems to be where a lot of people kind of like, well, if they had a good resume, that would work. Well, it really goes beyond a resume, and it really goes beyond the interview. It really is a reintegration. And so what we're looking to do through these initiatives here is to put together a blueprint that can be replicated in city and city and city and city across the country, all prescribing to a standard protocol as we do the reintegration process there. The goal is to make it as veteran-centric as possible, to sort of return veterans to a state of independence, empowerment. I remember when I got out and I joined the community, I was still mentally codependent on the way the military operated. And so that didn't leave, when I took the uniform off, it didn't go away when I started trying to do community work, if you will. I had to work through it over years, if you will. And so what this does, it sort of accelerates that reintegration process. It returns that the veteran to a state of independence. And, again, you guys are all familiar with, that icon right there, which is a veteran coming home without orders. That's a heavy statement right there, a veteran without orders, especially since that's the life that we know. That's the life that we've lived is, hey, I'm here to following orders. When I checked in, hey, I got a set of orders. I'm here to do a specific thing. But when I come home, I don't have a set of orders. I have to figure it out. I have to put it together. And, consequently, I do need help. So what this does, it leverages all organizations, all the resources. So we have a coordinated, orchestrated event where everybody is a contributor. And as you've all noted, veterans go from one organization to the next organization to the next organization, because that's just the way it is. No one organization provides everything that a veteran needs. And so what we're looking at through these CMVRs is having more of a very smooth handoff that says, now that you're done with this, now here's the next piece right here. But we're tracking that individual to make sure that they get from point A to point B. And so part of the responsibility or the role for the CMVRs is really to stay veteran-centric, to kind of keep a handle on where's that person at, and to serve as, wait for it, a navigator. And navigation is the number one big complaint that veterans complain about. Hey, I didn't know. Nobody told me. I didn't get the memo on what's happening. I got as much support as I could from the Department of Defense. But when I joined my community, it wasn't there in a cohesive, orchestrated and coordinated kind of way. That's the big complaint that we hear. There are tons of resources, but again, it's a matter of how to coordinate the resources. So what we've been looking at is, okay, how do we help enhance that person's readiness? And it does start 2 years prior to separation. And one of the things that we're working through right now is a series of apps to really meet the younger veterans where they are, because they're mobile. Okay, they're adaptive, they're flexible, and they're using their smartphones. And again, they want to make sure that they can at least have some way to automate and track. And so one of the things that we launched is what we call the manage a personal transition assistant app that actually helps them manage their transition from the time they decide they want to get out all the way through to their reintegration into their community. And so that could be maybe another discussion. But again, we're looking at everything like a project. So each individual ultimately will have his or her own destiny that they will write, but they all need to go through the process so they can find it in a sort of a collaborative and coordinated kind of way. So the goal here is just to build a tracking system, which we've actually done. And right now the Navy is beginning to use that. We've also started to look at, and this just shows you some of the answers to some of the questions that keep coming up that we get from veterans, from managing their transition themselves in their head to getting reskilled, which if your company or your organization is not part of the DoD skill bridge, then we should talk about how it can become part of the DoD skill bridge, because the military is really, really, really getting behind that in a big way. We have to have a feeder process, and that really is the feeder into employers, which is from the military into some upskilling and reskilling. That's just the way it is. And then right into the employment. Now, to really facilitate that job matching, we developed a job matching application that uses AI that's pretty doggone phenomenal, if I say so myself. It does the hard work of extracting out of the person what they're best at, what they're gifted at, matches them up with the employers, with the jobs in the industries. And so it makes our work really easy to help them find out what's next and help them coordinate their training. And then on from there, we've worked with some companies that help with what we call self-navigation and coaching, online coaching. Those systems are up and running and in place. And then finally, we have to figure out ways that we as organizations can share information to the individual, to one another, and keep our fingers on the pulse. And there's a tech company called Smorgasbord that has done just a great job of building a platform that's unique for us. It's not Facebook, it's not LinkedIn, it's not Instagram or anything like that. It's really designed for organizations to share. And Hilda and I have been already sharing information region to region. And so you have your network in Orange County, there in Temecula. We have a network down here in San Diego. There's a network in Orange County. There's a network in Los Angeles. At some point, we need to be able to connect those networks together. And Smorgasbord is the application that pretty much helps us do that. Let me just say one more plug here, and then I'll open up for questions. There's still some unfinished work that we have to engage in. And I'm glad we have somebody from the Army here. You all may be familiar with either the Soldier for Life program or the Marine for Life program. But right now, unfortunately, the programs are a program in title, but not in substance at this particular point. And I don't know if you know who your CASA is, your civilian aide for the Secretary of the Army. If not, we need to find out who your CASA is. It might be Mario Guerrera, and Casa Guerrera, he's up there in Los Angeles. They now have the responsibility for standing up a Soldier for Life program, which is really a reintegration program. How do soldiers reintegrate? What's the plan? What's the process? So again, we're putting together sort of a blueprint for them of steps that an Army veteran can participate in as they come home and they enroll in the Soldier for Life program or Marine for Life program, how do we get them into the system, our community Center for Military and Veteran Reintegration, so that we can find out what their needs are, resolve any upfront issues that they have, and then get them into the system, get them into the center, and then get them trained and reintegrated so that everyone could realize a successful dream or a successful vision. So I'm gonna stop right there and just sort of open up for questions, comments, and ideas. And let me just say that we're making some good progress, but it's still work in progress. And so we're still building the plane and flying the plane, but it's coming together real nicely. The work that's been done in both Downey and Sedalia is pretty amazing. Like I said, in Sedalia, it's now at the governor's desk. He's getting involved. He's got his economic development agency. We're going to be heading out to Missouri on the 12th of October to sit down with them and really talk strategy and really talk funding so that they have a statewide concrete veteran reintegration program. Not a bunch of a bunch of programs, but a specific protocol for reintegrating veterans back into the community. So I'm gonna stop right there and open up for questions.
Excellent. Thank you, Maurice. And you can ask questions in one of two ways. If you'd like to just jump in, feel free to do so, or you can type them in the chat and Hilda and I will facilitate for you. Scott Agajanian.
Hey, Maurice, great job. I love your utilization of stats to really kind of showcase what the needs are. Hey, you've talked about working with communities. How does a community like Marietta get involved with you, and what would be the right kind of way for us to interface?
So, Mike, you want to answer that question? Because Mike and we've been talking about this for months now.
It is the truth. So it's really a cookie cutter, and I think it would really come down to just getting us all in the same room to kind of talk about how this specifically would apply to Marietta. I know Maurice is really good at doing this presentation, and I think what I appreciate most about this program is that how it really is. It's very easily applicable, and that's why it's been so easy for the other areas and cities to essentially apply the infrastructure that Maurice has created. So really, I think that would be all just kind of getting us all together to talk about, what it means, what spaces are available, those kind of next steps. But I figured the Military Affairs Committee would be a great opportunity to bring, the powers to be together, but then also bring delight to maybe some of the other folks in the call today that aren't aware of this great effort that Maurice is charging. So.
Well, yeah, and if I can add, in Downey, we had a couple of great what we call stakeholder meetings over the past few weeks, where we brought in everybody, city, county, state, VA, everybody came to the table, VFW, DAV, everyone came to the table. And the focus was pretty much on how do we work together under the city of Downey as the leadership. And so the challenge that we found, because we tried to do something like this in Michigan, we also tried to do something like this in Indiana. This is like several years ago. And interestingly, both Indiana and Michigan had all the funding in the world to do it. So money wasn't the issue. What was the issue is that some of the local nonprofits felt like they were left out. And so again, the lesson that we learned is that this is not a reboot initiative. It must be owned by Marietta, your city, your mayor, your council. They have to really own it. Right now, we're in the process of signing a memorandum of understanding with the city of Downey. They're waiting to vote on that. We have a memorandum of understanding with Sedalia. Again, the lead for this project is the city or the municipality or the chamber, who are really the drivers. The rest of us, we're part of how they say, the spokes that make up the hub of the wheel to really get this thing going. And so it's so important to have that collaborative buy-in.
Well, second, that it's great information, Maurice. I did like how one of your slides outlines all the different benefits that are there. And that's where the mud is. A lot of this stuff appears to be built for the E6 and above and the 04 and above. And there's a whole forgotten generational gap from 5 and below and 3 and below. There's a lot of SkillBridge. You mentioned SkillBridge, for instance. We've got several students now in the Workshops for Warriors program in both machining and welding. Several of them have come to us and said that they were told by the commanding officers that SkillBridge is only for senior enlisted and senior officer. So they had to jump through all kinds of hurdles and hoops, just short of going to their congressman to get action taken. So it's good to see that you kind of outline that. I think it's important for people to see that it's a lot of information. And funny you mentioned the Army. I didn't realize, but the Army's created kind of their own SkillBridge now. It's titled something totally different. So again, these identity crises that our military is under and everybody trying to jockey for a position is creating some of the challenges, I think, as well. I'm hopeful on those apps. You're dead on. I mean, we'd be a fool to think that these folks aren't way more technologically advanced than any of us. They all go in IT specialists, basically day one in the military, regardless of what their trade is. I hope that we don't end up with a whole bunch of different apps again, and then it's trying to fix an app, find one app that works. And now we've got a whole bunch of people in their plan because predatory practices on veterans is pretty prolific. So kudos, man, great information.
Well, thanks. And on the apps, too late already. I don't know if you've heard about the Navy's app locker. If you haven't heard of the Navy's app locker, go take a look. Dozens of apps. And so it's coming. It's going to come, and it's going to be a tidal wave. You can't stop it.
Unfortunate.
Yeah, everybody's got the bug. And so, but it's okay because they all do something different. I think the protocol that I look for with apps are they integratable? You know, do they have an API that can plug them in? If someone comes out with let's say an app, and it doesn't have an API that can share data and plug in, I don't really have time for it. Because again, we have to think long range. This thing is not going to stop. It's going to continue to evolve. It's going to become more and more and more digital. There's going to be a need to make sure that individuals can track, wellness, employment. I mean, we're going to be tracking everything. That's why I have this slide up here. That's the next big wave that's coming, which is how do we monitor for veteran wellness? Well, if you haven't downloaded the Henry Jackson Foundation study on the Veterans Metrics Initiative, you might be behind the power curve, because that's another signal of what's about to happen in the future. People are looking for, and organizations and entities are looking for ways to stamp out PTSD. How do you do that? By monitoring the individual, by knowing where they are, what's going on. And so technology, yeah, it's a big deal.
Well said. Anyone else? Don't be shy.
Hey, Master Chief, this is Noel with Caring Transitions. How you doing?
Hey, doing good, thank you.
Just quick question on the CMVR mission. One of the bullet points there was to connect veterans with local employers and job opportunities. Would that include entrepreneurs? I mean, I think that'll be something that the veterans can have choices with, who like to be their own boss once in a while. And then absolutely. I think entrepreneurs, connecting with entrepreneurs, especially veterans owned, is pretty a good idea if that's something that hasn't been thought of.
Well, thank you for reminding me that I should have said up front that there are certain kind of like ideas that I should put up that is understood. So when I say veteran, for example, I mean transitioning service members, spouses, active duty, the whole 9 yards. I'm trying to use that as an all-encompassing statement that yes, it does mean that. So when it comes to employment, what I'm saying, again, just to put it out there, education, employment, entrepreneurship. Oh, absolutely, yes. Right now, just in the state of California, we have the largest population of veteran entrepreneurs and veteran-owned businesses in the country. We lead the nation. Texas is number 2. California is number 1 at roughly about 250,000. However, it's expected that a big percentage of them are going to sell their business because they're aging out of it. So when you look at that number of veteran-owned entrepreneurs or veteran entrepreneurs in the state of California, over 60% are ages 75 or older. So there's a whole lot going on, again, that we have to, in order for us to meet this system and respond, we're going to have our networks in place. We're going to have our protocols set up. And again, there are 3 tracks that individuals typically go through as they're reintegrating in. Either they go down the education route, they go down the employment route, or they go down the entrepreneur route. It's one of those 3. And there may be a 4th one, which is the retirement route, which is, hey, I'm just not going to do anything. I'm just going to chill out and take it easy. But by and large, yes. And so we are partnered with the California Veterans Chamber of Commerce. I'm one of the co-founders for the California Veterans Chamber. We have since then formed what they call the coalition, a national coalition of state veteran chambers of commerce, because again, it gets big, especially when you're in a place like San Diego, where we have roughly 25,000 transitioning service members each year. Only about maybe 25 to 30% stay in San Diego. The rest go to all parts of the country. If we don't have a plan that says, Petty Officer Jones or Chief Jones, when you leave San Diego and you go to Chicago, if we don't have a network established for them so that now they have a hot handoff, if you will, we're missing the boat, if you will. So there's so much work to be done. But yes, everybody's included. And when we say veterans, again, we're talking about all wars, all eras. Okay, we're, from Korean to, World War II, Korean, list goes on and on and on. We're about as all-inclusive as we can possibly be.
Awesome. Chief, I know you had something.
Yeah, great stuff. I know, these kind of things are super important and broad. And everything that I do, one of the biggest things that I'm always concerned with is, finding the buy-in from every one of these individuals that step out, because, in my experience, a lot of these guys are in lanes, and you just have to tune them into those lanes that really matter. And they have to believe in you. With everything that's going out there with misguided information and, the getting preyed on because you're a military member, all these things, sometimes you don't know what's good and what's bad. There's organizations out there that have really taken advantage of some of our veterans and kind of spun things up in one way, but they find out later on that it really took one of their benefits away. I think, it's going to be really hard to convince a lot of these guys, because even everything that I do with peer-to-peer mentorship through the PTSD Foundation, Warrior Built, and all the other ones that I really want to touch it first before I buy into it and I sell it to one of my buddies and one of my battle buddies. So, this is super important. I really love to be part of knowing what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And, finding these guys that are really going to want this help.
Mm-hmm.
You can only help so many that want that help. And I think that's going to be the hardest part, because you're right. You can throw money all day long at it, but until you have somebody that really wants that help and wants to help themselves, that's where it's really going to be important.
Mm-hmm.
But thanks, good stuff.
Yeah, no, thank you. No, and you're absolutely right. And that's something that we discuss a lot. And we've actually come up with some potential answers that yet to be worked out or solutioned out. We call them monthly musters or weekly musters, where the goal is to bring them in. And we have 3 activities that we want to engage in, which is engage them, excite them, and enroll them. Because you're right, many have lost faith in the system. They've lost kind of like faith in some cases in themselves, and all the red tape and things that are going on. And so we're going to have to rebuild trust. But that's why we need to develop these centers for military and veteran reintegration, where we can all rally behind a point where, okay, instead of us kind of taking pot shots at each other, we all take that energy positively and we put it into the center. And then we all invest in this endeavor and we bring all of our veterans home. That's the thing, that we all have to get behind it. We all have to sell it, because when we're confident in all of ourselves, in our abilities, that confidence, it kind of like spills over to our service members and veterans. They see that and I've heard this from a lot of them. I want some of that. I want some of that confidence. I want some of that positive. I want some of that energy. And so if we're about that energy, they're going to look at us and they're going to jump on and be part of it.
I have a question. I think Aaron kind of brought up a really good point. So my question is, how do you guys address the mental health aspect of the program? And also my other question is, where is your location in San Diego?
Let me start with the last question. My location in San Diego, I'm in Mission Valley, located in the same office complex with Wounded Warrior Project. And that's right across, in the same parking lot, which is across the street from the VA. I don't know if you're familiar with San Diego and Mission Valley, but that's where our headquarters is located out of. To your question about the mental health piece, if you will, we've I'm not sure, are you guys familiar with the VPAN project that is taking place in Los Angeles? Los Angeles stood up a program. They've actually committed like $33 million for a 3-year project to implement. It's a county veterans mental health initiative called the Veteran Peer Access Navigator Program. And again, peer navigators are big business now. They're beginning to evolve, if you will. And so part of the VPAN process is to go out and meet veterans where they are, and then bring, with an iPad, notice that technology, enroll them with an iPad, and then get them into systems like the CMVR. In fact, when we did our meeting in Downey, the VPAN representative and the project manager for the Los Angeles County Mental Health Services was on. He couldn't be there physically, but he was on the call. So they're all in, and they're seeing how this makes their job easy. Where the step one is, so how do you deal with mental health? Well, first you got to have sort of like your initial assessment. Where's the person at? And as you look at this slide right here, we've been tracking and following the Henry Jackson study on veteran wellness. And so one of the things, and again, another app that will be released real soon will be a wellness index, where the individual can just kind of, on a scale of 1 to 10, very simple, very easy, kind of gauge how they feel and where they're at. And once they've done that, it's like a self-assessment, then immediately we can respond to that person's needs to get them the kind of help that they want, whether it's financial, mental health services, housing, whatever the case may be. But a big part of that is turning off whatever the stressor is that's causing the problem, alleviating that, and then moving into the next phase. And so in the next phase, we've been partnering up with some pretty much world-class organizations. One in particular is called the Pacific Institute. And I'll send you some information about this Pacific Institute. They've been around for about 50 years. They do a lot of behavioral wellness training and development. They have a program called Achieving Wellness and Balance that is pretty phenomenal. The goal is to get the individual in a state of self-management. And so we're now putting in place, to answer your question, a protocol that says, well, what's the first step for the veteran? And then what's the next step? And then the next step, and then the next step. How do you triage them into where they need to be? And so we're building sort of this triage system that first find out what their immediate needs are. The VPANs will access them out there, especially in the Los Angeles area, get them in the system. Then we'll do a sort of like a spot check, and then progressively continue to move them into the right place to solve whatever needs they have. Does that answer your question, Raven? Kind of, sort of, not necessarily?
Kind of, sort of. I mean, obviously, so you guys don't have all of those services in-house, so it would be working with other organizations to address the other needs. And
absolutely. We're not reinventing the wheel. We're looking for organizations to refer to. So that's all. That's the whole part of the whole CMVR is we all come together under one tent. And then group A goes out and does the outreach. Group B does perhaps maybe the assessment, and then Group C delivers the services. It's as simple as that. And so if you already have a program, then we become a feeder to your program. We have a destination. Again, overall, what we end up doing through the CMVR is just tracking the individual to make sure that all of their needs are met. Okay, it's pretty much as simple as that.
Mike, I got a question.
Go for it, Terrence. Yes, sir.
What up? Hey guys, Terrence, Storm Baseball. With that being said, can I be a part of a feeder and provide free tickets for military vets in your program? Just to say thank you for what you guys do to maybe offer some type of, mental health / spiritual need, or, just a day off where we can just chill and watch baseball.
So Mike, do we have a program yet? See, it's not up to me. It's up to Mike.
Terrence, I got you for sure. We love you, dude.
That's kind of like the purpose of the call is like, do we want to do this? Do we want to put a program together utilizing the tenets that we just talked about?
Absolutely. Well, I don't want to reinvent the wheel, like you said. Down at Petco, we're the Class A affiliate of the San Diego Padres, which is in your backyard. And they do a salute to soldiers every Sunday. They bring out truckloads of vets and soldiers, and those little things. We can do our part. I'm in. I'm game.
Yep, absolutely.
Love it.
Yeah, I think Mike's been kind of waiting for that moment to think about when to pull the trigger. And so, Mike, back over to you for the closeout, so to speak.
Thank you, Maurice. And the level of engagement here was exactly what I was hoping for. There's been a lot of these conversations and inspiration and just visions that's been kind of created behind the scenes here for the last 2 years. And really, from our perspective, it's been about identifying who the powerhouses are, who has the infrastructure, the means, the data, all of these things to really implement and be successful, right? The Military Affairs Committee from the get-go was all about bringing together the powers that be to make a big positive impact on the local Southwest Riverside community. So Maurice is someone that I ended up connecting after screaming at my computer screen for about 45 minutes when he was on the House Representative call with Levin, who is a powerhouse down in San Diego, also talking about integration and who is really going to be able to step up and play the part to make sure that the veteran gets reintegrated. And it's funny because at the time, I was yelling at the screen like chambers of commerce are a great place to start. And then from there, it's all spun off into the Military Affairs Committee. It's just really exciting. So with that, I want to make sure that I'm staying true to our time here. We had some great discussion, great insight here today. Please help me celebrate Maurice. He is amazing. You will be seeing much more of him as we move forward here. And Maurice, as I was just actually texting with some of the other folks, we'll make sure to bring kind of the powers together as we move forward here. So thank you once again for just being you. I really
My pleasure. Thank you.
Rock and roll. So with that, I want to be kind of conscious of everyone's time. Nikki, I know there's a big Veterans Expo. I'm sure Raven can harmonize on that coming up here soon. I'm just going to go through, use the last, 3 minutes of our time here, just if there's anything that anyone wants to get out. Nikki, we'll start with you with the Veterans Expo.
Absolutely. So I put more information in the chat and everything, my contact information, that kind of stuff. But we are having our huge Veterans Expo on October 22nd. It goes from 10 to 2. It's free for vendors and attendees. It's going to be at Monteleone Meadows in Murrieta, California, of course. And we're just looking forward to it. We're hoping it's just going to be super helpful. We have about 60 to 65 vendors right now, and that's everything from job opportunities. There's going to be interviews on the spot for veterans, everything from health services, veteran resources generally, and then fun stuff like, we've got pretty much everything, but also just kind of, like I said, fun stuff, employment opportunities, health services, veteran resources, and educational opportunities. That was the big one I was trying to find. So, so we've got, like I said, we've got a little bit of everything, and we're just hoping it's going to be super, super helpful and yeah, so that's kind of everything that I have.
Thank you, Nikki. Been great to see you a bunch lately. Raven, I know there's the Field of Honor. Did you want to talk on that?
Yeah, and I'll be quick. Let's see. So October 13th, we're doing our military care packages at the Marietta Innovation Center. Space is limited, so if you know anyone interested or any deployed troops, please contact me. And then October 22nd, we will be at the Senators and Assemblyman's Veteran Expo that Nikki was just talking about. That's going to be awesome, you guys. You don't want to miss it. And then we're also putting together the Veterans Resource Expo for the Field of Honor with the Marietta Rotary. That's going to be on opening day for all of the ceremonies, recognitions, and all that good stuff. So if you want to get involved, please send me a message and we'll get you out there. Thank you.
Rocket, Raven. Thank you. So those are two that I knew for sure. Anyone else want to jump in? All right, forever hold your peace.
I see
Hilder?
Tony had a question. What is the site? Are you talking about the site for the Veteran Resource Summit or Expo? Sorry.
Correct.
Nikki, is there a website for it?
We don't have a Facebook event right now, but to RSVP, you can just call our office at 951-894-3530, or you could also email me. I put my email and the office phone number in the chat, and that's kind of, we don't, like I said, we don't have the event just yet on Facebook, but once we do, we're sending it out to every single place that we possibly can, so.
Cool.
And I have the flyers on our website too, on milvet.org. There's a flyer for that event and all the other ones as well.
Thank you, Raven. We had a question earlier from Brad Garner. He had to leave, but he was asking if we could get the slides, Maurice. Yeah, cool. Thank you. All right, that's all for me.
Excellent, Hilder. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and adjourn. I do want to remind you all that next Wednesday from 11 to 1200 is the entrepreneur panel. I am so beyond excited for this. If you know anyone that's thinking about it, starting a business, expanding on their business, or just has some good, tough questions for people who are really smart at business, we have Stephanie Brown from the Rosie Network, the CEO, the new director from the Veterans Business Outreach Center in Miracosta, Kelly Anthus, as well as Matt Wiggins from Vet Fran, that are going to be on this all-star panel of entrepreneur-minded folks, and it'll be facilitated by one of our local veteran business owners, Mark Sigmund. So it should be a hoot just to see Mark Sigmund in that role, just in general. That'll be fun. But it will also be an absolute ton of information. So come get those hard questions answered. If you know a veteran in a business, this is going to be one of those things that you don't want to miss. So Matt Wiggins is piping all the way in from Washington, D.C. So it will be virtual, but it's going to be a ton of fun and a ton of great information. As always, we'll have it recorded. So if you have to miss it, let us know and we'll make sure you get the recording as well. So with that, I want to thank you all so much for being with us. I want to thank our sponsors for the military supporter badges and supporting everything that we're doing here. And finally, my ask of you is if you know a veteran-owned business that does not yet have one of the window clings that for your military businesses here locally, have them reach out to me. They're free. I'll make sure they get one. It's a beautiful thing. With that, appreciate you all. I'll see you next week.